Show and Tell Signature.
Welcome to Show and Tell Signature. This is just some of my favorite people talking about their favorite decks. Today I'm super excited to sit down with my friend HamHocks to talk his Teneb the Harvester deck. Ham, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, Drew, thanks for having me, man. This is a blast. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. Very cool deck, very cool commander. I'm pretty sure it's funny. I'm pretty sure I own this card, and I was reading it, and I was like, oh yeah, this is a sweet deck. So Teneb the Harvester is 3 black, green, white, Abzan, for a 6/6 flying legendary creature dragon. Whenever Teneb the Harvester deals combat damage to a player, you may pay 2 and a black. If you do, put target creature card in a graveyard into play under your control. I always love it when it says a graveyard, not just your graveyard.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah. So let's see. According to Mox Field, this is generally treated as a bracket 2 core. No game changers, no mass land denial, extra turns, any of that kind of good stuff. I think, is Teneb technically an elder, like one of the original elder dragons that we made? I feel like there was this planar chaos. So the lore, I'm gonna get dunked on the lore right now. I think I don't remember.
No, you're good. Honestly, I don't know the lore of the character at all, and I know he's not one of the. Or they are not one of the Elder Dragons. Because I know they would have the type for that. Although Planar Chaos did have this cycle of 3-color dragons that were different. They might have been meant to be off-brand versions of the Elder Dragons. I wouldn't be surprised if that was kind of part of the design philosophy, but I don't know that for sure.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember too. Was it? Did they redo the Elder Dragons? Or someone who's probably more well versed in the lore?
Yes,
probably.
Sound off in the comments on that.
Yeah. There you go. Anyway, let's just jump right into it. I mean, you probably reading the text box looks like it could be reanimated. What's the plan with this deck for you? Yeah,
yeah, that's it. So, funnily enough, when I love reanimator strategies in general. I just cannot get enough of them. I love playing around in my graveyard, and I love being able to loop them. Specifically, in Golgari, black and green. I like being able to ramp my lands and then also go into the graveyard. And with splendid reclamation-style cards like Lumra or Aftermath Analyst, nowadays they've really leaned into the graveyard land thing as a whole archetype. Yeah. And they made that for me. So Wizards, thank you. I appreciate it. Yep. I love all that stuff. And so when I first set out to build this one, it was when I was first kind of getting into Commander, I was building a ton of different decks, just trying random things. The very first deck I ever built was Savra, Queen of the Golgari. Okay. And I took that one apart because it ended up being very stacksy. It was a ton of creature sacrifice effects, and then when I have to sacrifice a creature, I would have it and other Grave Pact effects online. So I have to sacrifice one, you now have to sacrifice 3. Have fun with that, and so that deck ended up being very stacksy and really not fun to play against at all. And so I ended up taking that apart and it's okay, I like black green, but not like this. Yeah. So what do I want to do? And then I kind of realized that leaning more into the reanimation aspect, let's have a couple of gigantic monsters and let's be able to pull them out maybe earlier than I'm supposed to. Okay, cool. Let's go with good old-fashioned Gristlebrand shenanigans, right? Yeah. Was kind of the idea. And I found that was fun and all, but it worked best when I was able to create an engine. Because in Legacy, when you pull out one gigantic monster on turn 2 or whatever, you win the game because you have the big monster. In a game of Commander, getting one gigantic monster out early doesn't really guarantee anything because you have so many opponents and so much you need to beat. Yeah. And so the challenge kind of became, how do I build a reanimator deck that wins because it reanimated even in a multiplayer environment? Yeah. And that's where cards like Living Death or Rise of the Dark Realms, these mass reanimation effects really kind of stepped up. And as I tuned this deck and as I was kind of tinkering with it, Teneb was the first kind of reanimator commander that I gravitated towards just because having a big silly dragon in the command zone seems like a good idea, and it gives me access to 3 really good colors for graveyard shenanigans. The funnily enough with this deck, the more I've played it and the more I've tuned it, the more I've tinkered with it, the less important Teneb has become. And so he's my plan B in this deck. I don't actually plan on resolving Teneb at all in most games. If I have to, something's gone sideways, but having that as a backup plan is good. So So yeah, it's been fun. And so what I'm basically trying to do as I'm playing this deck, my goal is to win with a mass reanimation loop, being able to reanimate stuff, sacrifice it all for value, reanimate it again, and use cards like Eternal Witness to grab back Living Death or Rise of the Dark Realms, and then sacrifice things to Phyrexian Altar to be able to recast it. Yeah, and do those kinds of loops. And if you add a Sir Conrad into the mix or another like Blood Artist style effect, that usually wins the game. So it does kind of create this infinite engine, but it takes a really long time and a lot of moving parts to get there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that was kind of the idea. And I've enjoyed it because Commander games all have to end eventually.
Yes, they do. I think people forget that sometimes, but like,
right?
You can spin your wheels, but at some point, someone's got to, hit that final blow.
And I've thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too. To your point, talking about in like Legacy or something, getting the big creature on turn 2, like almost guarantees you win the game. In Commander, it almost puts like a giant target on your back, right? Because all of a sudden now you're the threat early. So like it's almost like the inverse. Like getting a big creature on turn 2 is going to feel great, but now everyone's like, oh no, we got to take care of this before we can do anything else.
Exactly.
And I really like you said something really I think smart when it kind of comes to like deck building. Is Teneb is kind of like the backup plan. I think I am by no means like the best deck builder, but I think a lot of times people build decks that rely solely on their commander, and I think when that strategy kind of gets interrupted, then the deck kind of falls apart. I think if you're building a deck where the commander is like the second or even third option, you're going to probably have a lot more success with it because it's not so reliant on just one card. It can kind of operate because the commander. Obviously, everyone can see the commander, like knows what's going on when the commander is there, right? So people can kind of prepare for that and adjust accordingly. But if the commander is like the backup plan, I think you can execute strategies a little more successfully, which is kind of cool.
Oh yeah. Well, and so much design nowadays, the commander, like there are so many legendary creatures where they clearly design it to be the core engine of a commander deck, and like it's really obvious. And if you want to build that, you really ought to lean into it. And one of the things I like about all the Planar Chaos Dragons is they're all expensive, especially by today's standards. I mean, they were even expensive back then too, to be fair.
Yeah.
They don't really do that. They don't give you an engine. Like Intet the Dreamer is another one. It's, I believe, the Teamer one. And I've wanted to build that for a while too, but like, man, it's awful. Compared to so many other effects like that nowadays. Yeah. And so, Teneb is also not great, but it does the thing that I need it to do, as a backup plan. Yeah. And I enjoy building commander decks like that, where I come up with where I try to build around a theme and showcase cards that do the thing and have a commander that can help support it. And the commander's almost an afterthought. I enjoy building decks like that. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I think it's hard to your point, like not to build like commander engine decks these days just because like the cards are so good.
Absolutely.
But I think this is actually a kind of good way of taking advantage maybe of a older card, but an interesting gameplay strategy or, a type of play that like really interests you. So, so that's kind of cool. Just kind of want to jump into some of the cards in the deck. First off, I really like to start is like the 38 lands, technically 40 with the MDFCs. Super responsible land count. I've actually been very impressed with all my guests so far. Everyone's had, for the most part, 36 to 38. I mean, 40. To me, I'm like, man, 40 lands is wild. Like, I know that's probably great, but it's like, that's I guess, there's a lot of high costed cards and creatures in here, so you want to make sure you're hitting your land drops. I mean, I think I reiterated the show, like hitting your land drops make playing Magic so much more enjoyable, right? Like if you're hitting your land, it's just so easy. Like if you find cool cards, like, oh, this card, like, I like all the cards in my deck. I don't want to take out a creature.
Like shave a land here and there.
Yeah,
exactly. It's easy to do. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, just some cool cards. Also this, this list too is really nice. It's very updated. I got cards all the way up to Edge of Eternities in here, which is pretty sweet. I think Eternities brought a lot of good tech for this type of deck as well.
It did.
But just some fun stuff. Just off the top, after I think you mentioned this already, Aftermath and Analyst, 1 and a green for a 1/3. This set, Murders. I keep finding, people kind of keep coming on and having these kind of diamond in the rough from that set, and I think again the setting and then maybe the weird like hat set in this kind of turn people off. But there's some cool cards in that set, you know.
I couldn't agree more. I find Murder so fascinating because people talk holistically about how it was a bad set, and it's like it gave us Aftermath Analyst, which in my opinion is fantastic. So that alone is worth the price of admission. But like, Pick Your Poison, the Surveil lands, like Vein Ripper, like there are a lot of bangers in that set if you really stop to look. So yeah. Oh no, but the aesthetic, I get it. That's fair. It didn't feel like Ravnica. Yeah, fair. That's all fair. But the cards are pretty good sometimes.
They should have bit the bullet and just made a new Capenna. Probably would have done
100%.
A whole lot more better received. So 1 in a green, a 1/3 elf detective, even like a relevant creature type, right? Elf.
Yeah.
When enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards. Always great. 3 in a, but like the second 3 in a green, sacrifice Aftermath Analyst, return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tab. That is wild. All land cards,
all of them,
in a deck that's self reanimator is trying to mill yourself. Like, I've been blown out by this card often on Arena, and it just for an uncommon too. It's just like wild at how the power of that just ability.
Oh yeah, and I play these kind of strategies, on Arena in like Brawl or even in. I try to force them in Standard from time to time as well. And like in my experience with an effect like Aftermath Analyst or Lumra, if you can get, or even just Splendid Reclamation, which was the original one, unless I'm forgetting something, but like that's the old school sorcery. That's just 4 mana, do the thing. If you've been milling yourself and your goal is to mill yourself somewhat aggressively, and you can hit one of these effects for 3 or more lands, your opportunity or the possibility of you winning the game increases dramatically. And that's part of the reason why I have so many lands in here. And I'm also running like Ice Till Explorer, which is another one of those cards that fits into that strategy. And as the lands are hitting it, they mill, and you can play them from the graveyard. And so it all just kind of feeds on itself. The amount of like ramp value you can get off that. The other thing that's great about Aftermath Analyst, you can do it at instant speed. So it can block something and then fire. Or when your opponent tries to play the Rest in Peace or tries to play the Espers to Magicite, you can crack it in response, and get all those lands back. I love it. It's great.
Another one on my list that you just mentioned was Ice Till Explorer, another new one from Edge of Eternities, 2 green for 2/4. Insect Scout creature. You may play an additional land each of your turns. Okay. You may play lands from your graveyard. Okay. Landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, mill a card. When I first saw this, or it was kind of first showing up again, I play a lot of Brawl. I was kind of like, okay, that's cool. This card is like, you got to kill this card immediately. This card just gets out of control, out of hand, like so fast. I feel like it's one of the things you read, and you're like, yeah, that's pretty good. But in practice, it's just the amount of value this one guy generates is wild.
Cracked. Yeah. And in landfall environments, and the thing with this is with fetch lands, like even something as simple as a Fabled Passage, you drop it, you mill one, crack it, you mill again, you then can recast it from your graveyard immediately. And if you mill any other lands that are better, you could play them instead. It's silly. Like it's so good. Yeah. I love this thing.
So great card. Another card that I mostly know because of you, I see you play this card a lot, and get just a cool kind of self-mill enabler is Collector's Vault from Wilds of Eldraine. Just a 2-mana artifact, tap 2, tap, draw a card, then discard a card, and create a treasure token. Anytime you can loot plus benefit, and get a treasure, I feel like it's like that's one of those cards. I feel like when you have like these kind of strategies, and you're like, oh, here's this 80-cent card from my bulk bin that's just slides right into this deck like perfectly. Like those are some of my favorite like feelings about building a deck is when you find those type of cards. But draw 2, draw, discard, but and getting a treasure token, right? In a deck that has a lot of high cost of stuff, like the treasure token, I think really is like what pushes this.
It makes a difference, absolutely. And in my experience, if you're going to play Collector's Vault, like if you're committing to this card, you really need to plan on activating it on turn 3. Like if you play it on turn 2, you really got to plan on activating it on 3 and have some kind of game plan there, either to use the treasure immediately or trying to ramp up into something and curate your graveyard. But I know when I'm looking at my hand and there's something specific that I want to do on turn 3, I'll try to get a tap land out of the way or do something else rather than play the vault. Because running the vault out on 2 and then not using it for a turn or 2 feels really awful. But the cool thing about this deck is I'm trying to get this big late game strategy. I'm trying to execute this big late game situation. And honestly, in most commander pods, it's best if I'm not a particularly big threat in the early game. And so cards like this that are just slow setup are exactly what I'm looking for, because it helps set me up and it doesn't paint a target on my back, you know? And so in a lot of situations, people are like, oh, he's just doing the vault, it's fine. And that said, if people want to get in chip damage while I don't have blockers, fair play, get after it. But like, at the same time, if this tees me up for, you know, a turn 4 living death or something like that, or if it allows me to put a big thing in my graveyard that I can use Animate Dead on later, it's, you know, or even you cracking this and then using the treasure to cast Reanimate is an option, you know? Like, it's nuts. Although, to be fair, actually, fun fact, I actually don't run Reanimate in this specifically, instead opting for Stitch Together and a couple of enchantments like Animate Dead. So it's I don't actually run base Reanimate because I don't think that's as good as people think in Commander specifically. Legacy and Vintage, different story. Holy cow. But, I just feel the needs of the format are just a little different. Yeah.
Well, you know, it's funny too. So Stitch Together, I had written down because I actually had not seen this one before. It kind of blew my mind, to be perfectly honest. 2 black sorcery, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand, which is like, okay, like we, you know, whatever. But Threshold, instead return that card from your graveyard to play. Again, Threshold is a really weird, like, if you know, is it 7 cards? Like, that's not a lot these days, right? Between fetch lands and obviously a bunch of self-mill. 2 mana just, I mean, it's basically Reanimate, and you don't have to pay the life for 1 more mana. You know, I feel like getting the Threshold is like simple in this kind of deck, I mean, right?
Oh yeah, in a world where Stitcher Supplier is a thing, or like Hermit Druid could go off, like getting Threshold is trivially easy. Yeah. So this is just black Reanimate thing. It's great. I love it.
And again, like I said, I had never. What is the Judgment?
That was
the
Judgment when it was
Judgment
printed.
is one of the
and this particular the copy that is in this deck is actually one of my like high school acquisitions that became valuable because it's actually an original Judgment printing in foil.
Oh, okay.
And old border foils are like that's kind of like that's one of those where that just thing that I managed to stumble into as a kid, like that one became valuable. So I do run it in there and I like it very much.
I keep meaning to go back, and I'm pretty sure like I was playing when they first introduced foils. Like I remember like
oh wow,
I think there was some Urza stuff and like so, you know I was playing at the end of the Urza block, but I put a lot of like Mask and Nemesis, like not really worth a whole ton. But they just look like phenomenal. So we lost your camera for a second here, but we might be okay.
Sorry about
there
that.
It is. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, my camera does that occasionally. All right.
Been there. But it's funny, like these cards, like probably when you had it, it was not worth $33. Now it's like, oh no, this is like
now it's exactly
stonks. I think that's the appropriate term.
Yeah, stonks for sure. And and they've also reprinted it in a couple of other versions. Like it was in the Final Fantasy the Final Fantasy VI like Mardu Commander deck. It was reprinted in there with cool artwork, and I think it's been in a couple of other precons. So if you're not picky about what version you get, I'm pretty sure there's a version out there for like $1.50 something. Like if you want a cheaper version, they're there. You can play with this card. But yeah, I just again incidentally have one of the fancy ones, so I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just another kind of I'd say newer, maybe not as new because it's a bit from 20 was this year. Bartolome del Presidio. Just a legendary creature event from which is a white and black for 2/1, but just sacrifice another creature artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on Bartolome. Just free sack outlets are so useful, and on a body, and especially one that a lot of times it's kind of you see like Viscera Sierra, or there's also the new one from Edge of Eternity's
Umbra Collar Zealot.
Exactly. You get the Surveil one, but kind of, which is great. I mean, Surveil's, that's great as well. But you just kind of, you do have Umbra Collar here too, so good shout out.
And Viscera Sierra, they're all in here.
Yeah, but this again, having the ability. I mean, this is kind of talk about having, being an Abzan commander as opposed to just being maybe just black, is having access to this kind of creature, because this is, again, you can make this probably obnoxiously large as you're sacking it.
Possible.
Which is kind of cool too. Or just and you can, the fact you can sack artifacts as well. I think sometimes sacrificing artifacts to these kind of creatures kind of gets lost when you kind of have just kind of stuff going on. Maybe you have a bunch of land, you have some treasures, and like, well, I don't necessarily need the treasures right now, so like, let's make this creature oddly large, or if you need a big blocker to kind of stop something out of nowhere, like that's a kind of a benefit to have on the board,
Absolutely. And is another use for the collector's vault late in the game if my graveyard is already loaded. So yeah,
Exactly.
It can become a +1/+1 counter on this guy if it comes to that.
Yeah. Kind of talking about some Final Fantasy stuff. So a card that I saw that I really like, and I've been trying to think about how to incorporate in some decks is Kane Traitorous Dragoon.
Yes.
2 black, 2/4 human knight, has jump, which is during your turn. Kane is flying. Talk about flavor being on point. Whenever Kane deals combat damage to a player, that player gains control of Kane. If they do, you draw that many cards, create that many tapped creature tokens, then lose that much life. So I wanted to ask, do you, in this deck, like, what are you using? Are you just trying to get the treasure, the card advantage? Do you have some sneakiness going on with Kane there, or what's?
You know what's fun? I don't have any crazy tech with that card. The reason that I have it in here is because one of the things that the goal of this deck is basically the opposite of like that Savra deck that I first built. The Savra deck's whole goal was to choke everybody out and prevent a game from happening, right? And therefore I would win.
Yeah.
This deck is trying to do the exact opposite. And so what I want to do is I want everybody to have access to resources throughout the course of the game. Like I mentioned, when I describe this deck, I talk about it having group hug elements, and there are a lot of that, know? And basically, I'm running Kane Traitorous Dragoon because I don't have access to red, so I can't run Zancha. It's the idea behind it is really just, it's a fun body that I can just kind of throw into the mix and see what happens.
Okay.
And that's the idea with that card. Now, to be fair, and to be completely honest, that one is, I might, if another card catches my fancy and I need to make room, that one might get cut. It's just a fun piece to try to, create some dynamics and some back and forth with some of the other players on the board. And it's a kind of a political bargaining chip, which I always find fun to play with.
Yeah, I mean, I think the politics part of Commander is also one of the the underappreciated aspects sometimes. I was like, I wonder if there's, at first it's like, maybe like, you could do it where you hit someone and like when the trigger's on the stack, you can sacrifice whatever, but you do have to let the player gain control of Kane to get the advantage, which is like,
and I don't have like a flicker or like, bounce plan or of any kind. No, I don't run that. It's literally, and when I give someone a resource with this deck, I want them to keep it. Is the other thing. And like one card that also fits that strategy, which that's the funny thing. Kane Traitorous Dragoon is in this deck because it's a bad yet fun card. Yeah. And, it's bad in that my likelihood of winning is not necessarily increased by me playing it, yet I'm spending a card and mana to put it on the table. Yeah. Another card that's in this deck that I would be surprised if it's on your list of cards you want to talk about, but I would like to highlight it for a sec. Yeah. That's in the same vein is Veteran Explorer. It is a 1-drop creature that the moment I saw it when filtering through my bulk, I was just like, you're coming with me? Oh my goodness, you're great. And it exemplifies the kind of stuff that I love doing in Commander. It is a 1/1 human soldier scout for a single green. When it dies, each player may search their library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield, untapped, then each player may search their when they search the shuffle. So it harrows the entire board, myself and my opponents.
Oh wow, okay.
And I don't have any ways to punish my opponents for having more lands necessarily. I know I like to ramp. Yeah. And so what this is doing is, because I have access to sack outlets, I can usually time when it happens to make it like a little better for me. But I'm very intentionally giving mana resources to the people I'm at the table with because I want a game to happen. So let's just fast forward 2 turns and see where we go. And this card has absolutely ramped people into the turn combo killing me. It has happened a number of times. But you know what happens is when that does happen, I'm across the table from someone who I'm probably a friend of or like friendly with because we're playing a game together. And I get to watch their face light up as their deck does the thing. And they get to show me what their deck was intending to do. Same reason I run Howling Mine in a bunch of my decks. And like, I love that. So that's the thing. This is one of those cards where it's bad in the case that it's not helping me win, but I think it's fantastic because it's making sure that a fun game is happening.
Yeah.
And that's this deck is trying to create a bunch of that. I try to have a ton of that in the mix.
Yeah. Well, what's cool is Kane and even Veterans Explorer kind of create these like mini games within the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kane becomes passed around like you attack someone, you get benefit, and they're like, oh well, they have this creature now. Like, well, I can attack someone else and get the benefit, and kind of gets passed around. But Veteran Explorer is this weird like, when is he gonna pop it? Like, does someone try to kill it if they need the lands, or you having somebody access to sacrifice outlets? Like, it gets you 2 untapped, ready to go. Like, sometimes just having the 2 is all you need to kind of maybe start your engine to go and really kind of get the board set up to win. So I do think like when you kind of put these more game state cards that really engage players in a different way outside of like he attack, this card attacks, this card blocks, like this or that. It does engage, and because of the benefits, like there is like this subtle politicking going on where we're like, oh well, I got him attacked me, but then like I got two basic lands out of it, so like we'll wait before we swing at him or something like that. It's
right.
It's the game within the game you're playing, which I think is really really fun that maybe gets overlooked sometimes.
Right. Well, and this deck has ways to loop it. So I've been known to use like a Stitch Together to bring back a Veteran Explorer, sack it immediately, use the lands to do other stuff. Oh yeah, it can get weird. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and typically when you're like the self-mill lands-y type of deck, you're gonna benefit a lot more than everyone else, right? Unless you're playing someone else who's doing land. Yep. Yeah. So while everyone else is like, this is great, 2 lands, like and then you're over there like, well, I have 20 lands now, so I will proceed to cast Rise of the Dark Realms, this and that, and they're like, oh, got it.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Would you like to play this out, or are we good? Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
Too funny. All right. Let's let's move over to the one.
Yes.
The one.
All right. So your choice for the one again. So this has been my favorite part with this section is usually the cards people pick are like they're not super expensive mythics. They're not. It's some of the most just innocuous cards. And they're usually very fun. So this one, Vic, one of my favorite arts in Magic cards. Where'd it go? I have alphabetical order. Kami of False Hope. So just 1 white for a 1/1 creature spirit. Sacrifice Kami of False Hope. Prevent all combat damage that we've dealt this turn. It's Spore Frog and white, right?
It's Spore Frog and white.
Spore Frog and white, which you got Spore Frog in here as well.
Of course.
But you have their buddy Kami of False Hope. So why don't you? Why is this the one for you in this deck? Like, what about this card just makes you?
So I have a lot of contenders that could have been the one in this for sure.
Yeah.
And but when asked, what's the one? I'm thinking cards that I'm never gonna cut. If I literally had to cut this down to its core components, this would be one of them. And honestly, one of the things that I love about Spore Frog style effects, part of the reason that I picked Kami of False Hope rather than Spore Frog is literally just to tell your viewers, like, Kami of False Hope exists, guys.
Yeah.
Like, this card is here. I think a lot of people don't know it's there. People just think Spore Frog is Spore Frog and that's that. And it's like, well, that effect exists in other cards. And so being able to run both, having redundancy at that spot, again, because we're in Abzan, we have access to white. We have it. I love it. And in my experience, running effects like this, running a Spore Frog or running any kind of creatures or enchantments that like sit on the battlefield and can be sacrificed for value, like your Aether Spell Bombs or like your Seal of like your the old Seal cycle from like Torment, like Seal of Removal, and those kinds of cards. I love them because they create more tension on the field, and known information that your opponents have to stare down and work around. It's really fun to see how they handle it. And in my experience, getting a Spore Frog or a Kami of False Hope onto the battlefield, if you only have one, what that should do, if people are playing optimally, which, as we've established in Commander, people often do not play optimally, especially when I'm there. What they should do is people should focus fire and attack you because you can only fog one of them in the turn cycle. And if 3 people are each attacking you for 5 damage, like you've only prevented 5, in one of them.
Yeah.
That kind of stinks. Like that's, so, but what I have found is a lot of people will have, triggers upon dealing combat damage, or, they'll have this idea that like they need their attack to be valuable, and therefore they just won't attack into this, and they'll just let it sit there.
Yep.
Which is great, because now it has prevented the combat damage without me having to spend it.
Yeah.
So in my experience, these kinds of like Spore Frog effects and Kami False Hope. So any white players out there who are like, man, I wish I had Spore Frog. This was a common from Betrayers of Kamigawa. It's been around in the game for 20 years, and I think most people don't realize it exists.
Yeah.
And it's great. The other thing about this deck specifically that I love with it is I run like Luris of the Dream Den and Sun Titan and a number of other like reanimation effects or a lot of ways to pull tiny creatures out of the graveyard, because they also synergize with like Animate Dead or Dance of the Dead, which is really where the nastiness happens.
Yeah.
But if I don't have access to those, being able to recur this can buy a ton of time for me in the early game. So I'm a big fan. And it works. This is one of those cases, too, where it actually works with the commander. Teneb the Harvester is recurring reanimate. I can just keep a fog online. If I'm in a one-on-one situation and you can't answer my commander, I can just keep the Kami up, and combat just sort of doesn't happen on your turn unless you have a way to like stymie damage prevention,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
yeah, I think fog effects. I think I'm starting to see people talk about them more in Commander. I think they're very underplayed. Or they were, but I think a little more and more people are realizing, because they typically, even just fog, I think is usually 1 mana, prevent all combat damage. Like there's a lot of effects like that out there, and those can be, they can save your game pretty.
Oh my goodness! When you need them, you need them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Super cool choice. Again, big fan of the card. I've always loved the art.
Oh yeah.
Also, Betrayers, the whole Kamigawa original block is very nostalgic for me. It came out when I was in freshman in college, and that's when I kind of I got back into Magic for kind of that era. So like just remember playing in the dorms and cracking packs and all that kind of stuff. So
I was in a similar boat. Yeah, the original Kamigawa block is an absolute favorite of mine, and that's one of those where it's not just because I cracked more Betrayers of Kamigawa packs than I care to admit, and I have a dozen of these in my bulk. That's that's incidental. That's also there, but the nostalgia is a factor.
Definitely. So, I mean, Ham, this is a super cool deck. I just, kind of want to wrap things a little bit, but like in terms of like your normal play style or any fun stories you've had, I mean, I feel like anytime you have a Reanimator deck, like anything that pops to mind.
There have been, I've had a number of games with this that have been an absolute delight and a lot of cool moments. But kind of one that comes to mind is at MagicCon Atlanta just a couple months ago, as of this recording. I was in a game with actually a viewer, actually now one of my mods, a gentleman named Charlie, and it was him and his girlfriend, and then Carlo, MTG, fellow streamer, member Team Magic Jank, freaking love that dude. And in that game, like Charlie had borrowed one of my decks, and it didn't quite pop off. It didn't quite do the thing. And Carlo was playing a Captain America All Universes Beyond deck. Very fun, very silly. It was the commitment to the bit. I think even the lands. It was really well done, and it was just in proper kind of Captain America, equipment style. It was being pretty proactive, and it has established itself as kind of like the threat to beat. Which rock on. And in that game, I had a Stinkweed Imp. And that's pretty much it. And I found myself discarding the Stinkweed Imp to various effects. I might have had the Collector's Vault working it. And I just kept discarding the Stinkweed Imp, and I kept dredging with it, and I just didn't really have anything the entire game. But my graveyard just kept filling up and filling up and filling up. And as Carlo was worrying about all the other players, sending a little bit of chip damage my way, but realizing I wasn't really a threat, so he just kind of let it be. And then, it got to the point where, like, Carlo had lethal on me, like Commander lethal the following turn. And the other player got knocked out, and it went to me, and I just drew Rise of the Dark Realms. I was like, all right, I think I win. And Carlo was like, wait, what? And sure enough, hit Rise of the Dark Realms. I had an Eternal Witness was in the mix, as was Sir Conrad. And I think Bartolome or Umbral Collar, like one of these like infinite sack outlets, was also there, and it just did the thing, and and so. Well, and on top of that, I pulled, it was delightful. I think, was it Rise of the Dark Realms or was it Living Death? It was one of them. I did pull one of my mass reanimators, and it just popped off. And at that point, I had put the entire engine in my graveyard. All I needed was to pull it all out, and it happened. Yeah, and I think another one of the pings in there is the honestly, there's a ton of redundancy, but like Marionette Apprentice from Modern Horizons 3 is another one that was like in the mix as a pinger effect that was able to help make the engine go burr. And that was one of the, to go from like literally a non-factor the entire game to just winning it on the spot, because the Dredge 5 on Stinkweed Imp, another like classic card that I cannot recommend highly enough.
Yeah, so again, I remember I was playing when the first Ravnica first came out. I remember opening a lot of Ravnica. I remember this card, and just being like, this card doesn't seem no, completely. Talk about, I do not know how to judge power levels of cards whatsoever. I mean, I don't think they realized how powerful Dredge was going to be, regardless. Like at the time, and I feel like Stinkweed Imp is one of those cards that it appears in like, Legacy, Modern. Decks will come up and like, here's Stinkweed Imp again. Like there's Yeah, it's definitely just one of those.
Another interaction that just when it comes to Stinkweed Imp, I want to point out blood tokens or any kind of rummaging effect. If you discard first before drawing, you discard Stinkweed Imp and then replace the draw by dredging. And so if you crack a blood, you can discard a Stinkweed Imp and then immediately dredge 5 and put Stinkweed Imp back. And so it creates like blood tokens. Instead of discard a card, draw a card, it's just reveal Stinkweed Imp, mill 5. Is what you end up with. And if you want to mill, that's pretty great.
That's that's probably the most effective strategy I've ever heard, the blood token. I know they were kind
really
of
good.
That's awesome. Well, Ham, thank you so much for sitting down, talking this Teneb deck with me. I will have this. Yeah, I'll have this posted on the Show and Tell Moxfield signature Moxfield guest list. Not sponsored by Moxfield, but just a really cool site.
We love them though. Yeah.
Oh yeah, great place to find inspiration for decks or put decks up that you have. Super cool. And if you've liked what you've watched here, feel free to hit that like and subscribe button. Catch Ham on Twitch, and we'll catch you all next time.
Thank you. Yeah, and also anybody, if you see me at a convention or anything with my quiver, this deck is in it, guaranteed. I always have it on me. So
go say hi, get a game in.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome.
Right,
Dude,
we'll catch you
me,
soon.
man.
Bye.